Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today, I'll be doing a tier list of 40 different band logos. And if you notice that there are only 39 band logos on this page, then number one, I'm very impressed that you were able to count that with perfect precision in this 10-second intro. Number two, that is because my personal favorite band logo of all time is actually not included on this list. So I took matters into my own hands. I made an executive decision to put my favorite one in the logo as well, in the folder rather, and we will also get to that one at some point during this alphabetically ordered sequence of logos. But of course, if you read the title of the video, then you'll know that I'm not doing this alone. I've actually enlisted the help of one of my dear friends. Would you like to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Sure. I'm Kat, and I went to school for art, and so I have been enlisted because of that, I think, more than anything else. Um,
Yes, you have been enlisted for your artistic expertise, and I also Kat is just a very funny person as well. We went to college together, and we were in an improv troupe. She was the president, and I was the VP. So we have a lot of comedic chemistry as well, if I do say so myself. Um, but yeah, I'm super
that's a
excited.
fair sentiment.
Yeah, yeah. I'm super excited to get into this and to hear your actually educated opinion about some of these graphic designs because honestly, like when it comes to me, I'm just going to be kind of loosely ranking these based on vibes. I mean, that like maybe I'll throw in a couple of hand wavy justifications here and there, but yeah, if you actually want to get an informed opinion, it'll be on the other corner for today's video. But yeah, I think before we get into it, I just want to say, you know, uh, I will be putting her links in the description. I encourage everybody to go check out some of her work. She has awesome art, and in fact, if you look on the banner on my YouTube page, the little pixel sprite of me with the open face flannel and the blue jeans, that was her creation. So yeah, wonderful stuff. Go ahead and check out all of that after the video, or before the video if you just want to just want to click off. That's fine. So without further ado, are you ready to get into the first logo?
Oh, heck yeah, I was born ready.
Heck yeah, that's what I like to hear. That's the spirit. This is the first one here. Let's go ahead and pull up the 1975.
Ooh, yeah, okay, I've got it. So I actually do know this band, and
Okay.
I didn't know they had a logo. From, like, a graphic design perspective, I definitely get, like, what they're going for, but if I squint my eyes, I have no idea what the hell I'm looking at, which, other than, like, the 9 and maybe the 7. I think that the designs like this do work. I think that the fault that I have with it is just how thin the secondary lines are.
Yeah.
Because they don't read very well from a distance. Like thicker lines, like the bolder lines, those are gonna be read no matter like where you are. That's why you can kind of tell like where like the one, like the T, the E, the H, those are legible. But like the smaller lines are going to get lost to the distance. So it's not like a bad logo, but it's also not a super readable one. Which is kind of like, so it's kind of like to me, I don't know how like we're ranking it, but like this is like kind of like a for me. It just kind of feels like it could be stronger, or they could have made other choices to make it like more legible.
Yeah, this is definitely to me like this is like if you took Times New Roman and then if you tilted one side toward the camera a little bit and then shined like the sun's rays directly at it, then this is what
No,
you
wait,
get.
that's like a perfect analogy. That's
Um,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, so
Oh,
it is kind
goodness.
of like it is like be like just that bare minimum above the surface level of what you could do just like regular Calibri font or whatever. So I will give it
Mm,
points. It's not like a D tier. I think it's probably closer to B, like you said. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I'm fine with putting this one in B tier. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and slide that in the B category, and we will go ahead and move on. Next up, we have the Arctic Monkeys.
Okay, I hate to say this, but it's like they have like a bra logo. Like,
Yeah.
I know that it's I know that it's supposed to be sound waves.
Yeah.
But every time I look at it, I just think of a really artistically weird bikini.
No, it is.
And that's all I can see.
Yeah, it's absolutely just a bra.
Objectively, it's notable. Like, every time I see sound waves, I tend to associate it with the Arctic Monkeys, so they got on that train real early to get points for that.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But the text itself, so there's a feature that you can do in, like, Photoshop and, like, most drawing softwares where you can just kind of, like, smush and stretch and, like, just, like, do stupid shit, basically, in the program. And it just kind of looks like they typed in their logo, and then they just played with it in Photoshop.
Yeah, that is so true.
It's not objectively bad. I think that the harmony between, like, the logo itself and the name kind of throws me a little bit. Like, I think that they could have more success if they tried to just integrate them more, or they just have them for separate things. But together, it kind of is just, like, a kid messing around in Photoshop. Because it's just, like, two kind of unrelated things. Because, like, I guess they tried to implement, like, the sound waves into, like, the text, which is why the text is all wavy, but it just kind of doesn't work, I feel like, together.
Yeah, that's actually
how I feel about it.
That is a good point. Like, it does feel very much like they created the Soundwaves logo first, and then the record label was like, wait, like, people actually need to know what you're called, and then they were like, oh shit, like, we need to make, like, an actual verbal logo as well, and so they just threw that together at the end as well. I do want to say, so I'm making a slight modification here on MS Paint, and you can't see what I'm doing. I'm basically I'm filling in all of the letters with purple, and so the reason I'm doing this is because now viewers at home, I want you to go ahead and be honest with me. Okay, put in the comments. Is this Arctic Monkeys now, or is it Master of Reality by Black Sabbath? It is a little bit more entertaining than the 1975 logo, but maybe it deserves still to go in the same tier just because of the sort of unintegrated aspect that you were talking about. Next up, we have Avenged Sevenfold, the good old A7X. So this is absolutely, like, the ultimate band of, like, my parents don't want me to listen to this, and so therefore I love it.
Yeah, it reeks of, like, an edginess because, you know, there's a skull and bat wings, and the font is, like, disintegrated. Yeah. But it, you know, I do think, I will say, this is, like, the first one that I've seen so far on our list, which, you know, it's only been 2, but this is, like, the first one where I'm like, okay, they've worked together in harmony to make something that's cohesive. Like, the font that kind of looks like it's disintegrating with the skull, and, like, the bat wings with the, like, texture and stuff. It works really well together. And the circular nature of it, it's kind of basic, but it's serviceable. Like, it's legible. It would be good on a t-shirt, which is probably half of the point.
Alright, so Avenged Sevenfold goes in the A tier. And, of course, you know, this probably goes without saying, but, guys, this is not our opinion on the... we're not actually including our opinion on the music here, because, yeah, I already have enough enemies, so I don't, don't need to make any more.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and rank Bad Religion.
Oh, okay. This is real.
It is. It actually, you know, I love that, like, realization that you just had. Like, this is actually a thing that exists, isn't it? Just trying to soak it all in, aren't you?
Okay. My initial reaction, my gut reaction was just kind of like, what am I looking at?
Right.
Like, there's no way that, like, this feels like a meme. I have a lot of feelings.
It is, like, it is one of those things you have to kind of triple take and be like, do these people make music, or are they just a cult?
Everyone knows that big red symbol with the slash through it.
Yes.
Like, every single person on this earth knows what that means. And honestly, that is a marketable thing to use in design, because if it's an icon that people are familiar with and have a feeling about, you can use that to make your audience feel a certain way about your content. Now, that being said, the execution of this had me feeling a lot of things, and I don't think that all of them were intentional, because the issue that I have is that it just doesn't feel like there was a lot of effort put into this. It feels very like they had like 2 hours to like figure out what their logo was gonna be.
Absolutely.
And they just settled. I understand the theme. The execution, however, could have been improved.
No, it is very on the nose. Like, it does feel very much like, okay, if we had a band called Bad Religion, then like, what is the logo that ChatGPT would come up with for a band called Bad Religion?
There's actually a rule of thumb with a lot of artistic processes in that your first idea is actually typically not your best, because it's going to be the idea that more people would probably think of first. So if you're creative brainstorming, you want to like follow the path of ideas that's like not your first pick, maybe your second, your third, or whatever, and like build on it.
It does feel very first drafty for sure. I will say, just to give it its flowers, I do enjoy the font that they use for Bad Religion. That does not feel like a font that you could just get off of MS Paint or Photoshop. It just kind of feels a little bit cheap. Like, there's no shading on the don't sign. There's no, it's literally just like the pure, RGB colors that are being used here, and there's no shading or depth to it whatsoever.
Embossing is a process, and it's typically like a physical one, like on paper, but it's like a way of defining detail by going into the surface or coming out of the surface on paper. So it creates different surface levels on like paper or like a texture.
Interesting.
And so like you could imply that by giving it like a 2-level depth. So like there's shading underneath like the sign, or maybe like it's more like impactful in that way, where it has like those levels of depth that you can see on the logo. Because I would agree with that. Like it could have, if you had just pushed it a little bit further, it might have actually like translated a lot better, because it just kind of doesn't feel like there was a lot of effort given like what it is at present. I will put it in C tier. I'll give it a little bit of grace, because I do think that it has some execution that is above surface level. All right,
nice. The 17 Bad Religion fans were like, they just wiped the sweat off their brow with that one decision. So you just saved a life today. Okay, guess what time it is?
It's
That's correct. It's time for the Bee Gees, baby. Come on.
I'm gonna tell you a little story really quickly.
Yeah.
I just noticed that my phone time and my computer time are off, so for some reason my computer is an hour behind, so that's fine. Anyway, I didn't even respond because I was like, wait.
Wow, I didn't realize that I would actually send you into like a temporal spiral with that question. You were like scrambling over there like, what time is it? This feels very like classy. It's kind of giving me a little bit of Art Deco vibes. I kind of dig this one.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely has like the like an older style like artistic flair to it, using like the big bold letters, and they wrap around and go under the letters and stuff, and it's very it like the fact that they have like so many E's, it's expected that they copy and paste, but they still make it kind of visually interesting by having them like be underlined by other letters that go and wrap around. So that's cool.
They were able to create this sort of interesting symmetry where the B, the G, and the S are kind of like the pillars on the end and on the end points in the center, and the E's are kind of the filler, like filling out the middle as well. Honestly, I'm feeling a solid A tier for this one.
Yeah, I think so too. It's pretty much a perfect logo. Like it accomplishes everything. The only thing that I will say is that from like, again, if you're going by like visual cue and standard, it could get a little muddy if you see it from far away or if you squint your eyes, but it's solid. Like, I really don't have any nitpicks with it.
Blink-182. I gotta say, this is a pretty bold, entertaining logo.
It has kind of that, like, early 2000s, like, spray paint grunge type of vibe to it, which I think is exactly what it was going for. I do think that this kind of has a problem, the same problem that Arctic Monkeys has to an extent. Because, again, it's, like, big logo, text, both, like, I would argue that this is more well done than Arctic Monkeys, because I feel like the actual, like, band name itself is like very well done. Like it has an execution and like an idea, and it goes for it. It's pretty legible. It gets a little bit mucky because of how much the letters touch, especially the B, the L, the N, and the K, because it's like, it kind of just looks like a color explosion. If you're not like looking for a letter.
That's true.
Like, because if but it reads pretty clearly. Like, it feels just like someone is, like, tagging something with spray paint, and I think that that's exactly the vibe the band wanted. So, I think that it achieves that to a pretty good extent, although the harmony of the logo to the text in this situation, like, if someone printed that on a shirt, like, did, like a shirt print, I would assume that they got, like, their template crooked, because it doesn't feel like that should be placed the way that it is, because either the rule of thumb is if you're gonna make something intentionally look off, you need to like really intentionally make it look off, or you need to make it perfect, because if it's in between, then it reads wrong. Like, it reads like that was a mistake. Because it, you know, and that is like a really hard thing to balance.
You know, it is a little bit frustrating. I can see, like, there are 3 different X's, and as someone who lives by the advice that is X marks the spot, it is a little bit frustrating that there are 3 different spots in this. Like, where am I supposed to find the treasure? You know what I'm saying?
In a composition, you want the person to follow like a swirl pattern. You start from the top, you go towards the middle, and then you swirl out near the end, and there needs to be a focal point to hold your attention to draw you back around the loop. Like, that's the ideal like composition for almost anything. You need to have a flow and a center point in there somewhere. It doesn't matter what it is, but that's just how it needs to work. And I definitely see that your point is where it's like there's arrows pointing out, and there's X's on the thing, and then there's a circle, and there's a circle, and there's an X, and there's an it kind of gets visually busy. That's kind of the point, because like spray paint art, it gets covered up constantly. Like, you someone spray paints, and then someone puts on top of it, and it gets lost in, because like we have trains that run through my hometown still that are covered in spray paint all over the box trains, and like it just gets covered up, and then you lose that center point or the main idea of the other like tags or like the art that was on it.
The arrows are probably the most fascinating part of this for me, because number one, it is interesting how they're pointing away from seemingly what you're supposed to focus on, which I can see working. Like, it's sort of giving this vibe of like forward motion, like almost like this face has been spat out by a cannonball, or like a cannon, and like it's going out like into the northeast direction there. But I think it's also kind of interesting how everyone, like every component of this kind of seems a little bit splotchy and imprecise, except for the arrows. Like, the arrows are the only thing that are very like kind of blocky. They're perfect arrows. I think like it being on the same page as Arctic Monkeys kind of makes sense. It kind of has that similar, like, there's the verbal part and there's the visual part, and they're sort of separated, but they're also pretty creative. How do we feel about the Bon Jovi logo?
It kind of feels like a guy's cologne logo.
Yes,
it feels like the box art, which, you know, like, that's cool, but like, what is like a heart being stabbed by a sword with wings smell like? You know, like, probably not very good, right?
No, probably not. It's like, what does Bon Jovi smell like? Probably, cocaine and sweat. Probably not super good.
I do really like, because it kind of honestly looks like sort of American traditional tattoo. It doesn't have a lot of like the actual rules like it's supposed to abide by, because American traditional has so many rules. I've noticed something, and it upsets me about this.
Okay.
That diamond not being center bothers me so much.
It seems like they should have been able to do that, because the J and the I are very narrow letters. Honestly, for me, I would hesitate to put this any lower than B tier, just because of the fact that looking at the screen, I'm seeing a sword that is being stabbed through a heart with wings. Like, it's just, the coolness of that is just undeniable. As imperfect as it is, I mean, the highs of the Bon Jovi logo are undeniable. I think it does deserve to be in the A tier. So this next one is actually one that I had to look up the name of. I could not remember. I've seen this logo before. I couldn't remember the name of the band. Apparently, it's a band called Crass.
I don't think that they were going for like something. Like, this is just like, oh, shapes.
Yeah.
They make a shape logo. The thing that's interesting to me is that they made this choice at the very like top and the very bottom, where they have like these triangles coming in. And it just kind of looks like a really derpy snake trying to eat its own tail. It kind of is supposed to be like a center of interest, but I don't know what that is. Like, you haven't given me a lot of information to work with, other than I guess you were trying to make your logo look more interesting without giving it purpose.
Yes.
That's the vibe that I get. Like, I don't know, because I don't really have much experience dealing with, you know, shape logos, because honestly, I don't really care for them. Don't even get me started on the text. Oh my god, why are there chunks missing? Like, it doesn't feel thoughtful. It just feels like they were just like dragging like the clipping tool, and they were just like, yeah, that looks good.
My first impression is that they were trying to make it look like duct tape, with like, you know, this part's kind of you know, not quite taped down, and maybe there's a couple of tears in the tape, but then like but then like the middle of it is just so perfectly geometric that it doesn't give that duct tape feeling anymore. So I'm not really sure what they were going for. There you have it, folks. This is the first D tier.
Creed!
I think this is actually a pretty solid logo.
They have done something that some of the other bands haven't done as successfully, which is having that really thick, legible text. Like, there's no part of this that really trails off, except for maybe like the end parts of like the middle E and stuff, where it gets kind of thin, but I can still tell that's an E. That's not a problem. The second reaction I had is it just kind of looks like an old t-shirt.
This thing has been through its fair share of tumble dry lows.
I don't know how you're feeling, but I think it's like, it's serviceable, maybe a low A.
Yeah, I think high B is fine. We have none other than a Creedence Clearwater Revival.
What am I looking at? I'm sorry.
No,
sorry.
that is genuinely a very good question. This is absolutely a design that works for like a 7-letter word, but certainly not Creedence Clearwater Revival. There's a reason that everybody refers to this as CCR. Yeah, here, I'm going to make another one of my classic modifications that I'm sure people are tired of now, but all right, there you go.
Do you know what kerning is?
No, I don't.
I believe kerning is the space between the letters. You can actually modify that in a lot of different like artist software.
Okay.
And it's so painfully obvious that the kerning has been adjusted in like every single one of these words, especially Revival, because they wanted to stretch that word out so it'd be as long as Creedence and Clearwater.
That's actually crazy, because before you said that, I did not even notice, and now I cannot like even look away from it. I'm captivated. You know, if I ever had the chance to interview these fine folks over at Creedence Clearwater Revival Incorporated, I would ask, is it meant to look like a teapot, or no? Is it just kind of a coincidence?
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of this one at all.
I've seen this logo all my life, and it is a very iconic logo. So I feel like there's something about it that potentially works.
Let's give it a C for Creedence Clearwater.
Yeah, you know, that's actually a good point. Creedence Clearwater Revival does start with a C, so I don't even know why we deliberated on that. Everybody's favorite band, Fall Out Boy. Here we go.
They did like the thing that I like with shape language and like logos and text. Like, they made it something. Like, it's legible, it tells me something, it gives me information. They have like a semi-logo on the inside, so it's integrated well. At the same time, I think it kind of bumps into some problems we've mentioned in other logos, where there's a lot of muddiness that I can see.
Yeah.
Those letters are not super legible if you're not looking for them.
And it's also like, okay, is this a crown, or is it a volcano, or is it a tiki hut? Like,
it kind of just looks like someone was trying to do like a oversimplification of like a guy in a crown like walking away and his cape says FOB. Like, that's like the story that I'm reading. One of the things they could have done to make it more visually interesting, and also to like keep the like momentum that they had to translate it more, if they got rid of that weird break or made it like more concise.
Personally, I actually kind of enjoy like the little bit of space between the truncated triangle and the crown. It probably deserves at least B tier, for me at least.
Yeah, I think I'm good with. I think that's fair. I'd give it maybe like a low B, because I think that it's got some issues, but it's overall better than a lot of the other ones in B tier. Oh, Foo Fighters.
We got Foo Fighters up next.
I'm gonna be one of the first to admit that I for the longest time, did not understand that, like, the D in the Disney logo was supposed to be a D.
Yes, I thought it was a G. I was thinking, like, what is Gizmo?
Yeah, the style of F kind of invokes the same feeling.
I do personally enjoy the backwards Fs because they are, like, it is, like, I think doing it that way is sort of like a way to write capital F in cursive. I think that is, like, an accepted way to write F in some cases. And you know that it's.
Oh, is it? I barely learned cursive in school. They cut it right when I was going. This is a better use of color harmony than was used in Bad Religion, because Bad Religion is the same color scheme.
Yeah.
But this one is just, I think it's more successful because it feels like there's, like, consideration of
Yes.
like the colors and like how it's being layered and stuff. Because overall I think that this is a pretty solid band logo. The textography is not obvious. And if it's not immediately legible for me, I would suggest doing something else, as I think that you want to go for mass appeal typically with a logo, because that's the point of a logo. You want it to be identifiable and very easily read.
That's totally fair. Yeah, I think I have a little bit of a bias because I'm really nostalgic for the backwards F and the Fender logo, and that kind of reminds me of this. But like, I can definitely see what you're saying there. It's not going to be accessible as it could be. I do enjoy that one of the Fs is higher than the other one. I think that's a pretty good decision. I like the color scheme. The white kind of gives it this illusion of shading. Like, it's not technically shading, but it is sort of an illusion of depth that I enjoy. For me, I don't know. It's kind of an A tier.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You would be hard pressed to find a more iconic logo than the classic Green Day.
Yeah, no, this is very iconic. I've seen this. I've obviously heard some Green Day in my day, but tis.
Yes, good one. It's a good one. I apologize to everyone out there for this watermark that's on the picture that I got from Google Images. But you would expect a band called Green Day to have a green logo, and the fact that it is just overwhelmingly like the only non-black and white color here is red, which I think is really cool because that is obviously the central motif that we're looking at here. Like, everything else is black and white except for that really visceral bleeding heart. It really seems like they're trying to make a really stark message with this one. Honestly, I think this might be my favorite one so far.
Yeah, and the other thing that I will add from like an artistic perspective is that I do really enjoy that they're called Green Day, yet their main color, like their actual main color, is red, which is the complete contrast to green. Like, they're opposite on the color wheel.
Yeah.
We tend to like subconsciously understand certain things about color and artistic execution and like uncanny valley and that kind of stuff. So I do really think from like an artistic perspective that they had like a vision and they executed it really well. Like, it kind of just looks like a calling card, or like one of those things that people put like a call of action.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, you just need to know this information, this is our brand, this is the visual, that's it.
Right.
And it's very clear cut, it's concise, it's to the point. It doesn't need to be anything more than that. It just needs to be impactful. And I think that they accomplished that really well. Like, I would agree, this is probably one of the best logos that we've seen so far.
Yeah, and the points you made about the dichotomies happening here really kind of opened up my perspective, because I'm realizing, like, yeah, red is the opposite of green in many ways. Like, there's a lot of black in this, which can be sort of viewed as the opposite of day. Yeah, I like just also the image of seeing like this heart that is like that has the structural integrity of a grenade is like it's such a visceral image, because you think of a grenade as being this like indestructible like wartime machine that's made out of metal, but then to actually think about it in terms of like a soft beating heart that's actually bleeding out, it's like a very activating image, if you will.
Showing like my heart is bleeding, but it's also a weapon. And
Yes.
I think that's a really cool execution for like a logo or just like any artistic visual. Like, you want to have like a layered meaning.
This might be our first S tier.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that there's just too much about it that is successful and artistic that it would be a disservice to put it any lower than an S tier.
Yeah, it has everything. It has the good composition. It has the cultural impact. I mean, I've known about this logo since I was a kid, which is very impressive, because like I knew nothing about pop culture as a kid except for
Right.
Luigi's Mansion and Green Day. So this next one here is actually one that I've never heard of before. It's a band called Hole. It kind of reminds me of that sort of like old-timey like Rugrats kind of uh, art style.
I just mentioned in the last one that Green Day, green is, the opposite of red, and they made the choice to use green and red instead of white, black, and red, like some of the other bands.
Yeah.
Which, honestly is not like a horrible choice, because you can have very successful color schemes with opposing colors on the color wheel. So an issue that you have with colors that are opposite of each other is when you put them next to each other, they tend to do what's called like vibrate.
Mm-hmm.
So your eyes, they see them as such separate things, like complete opposite things, that when they're put together, it kind of like creates this like vibration visually on like the image itself that can make it hard to look at, but also it can make it visually interesting if you know how to use it correctly. With this, I kind of get a little bit of both. Because the thing that you need to know with, using color schemes like this is that you need to be able to give your viewers like an eye break. Like, you need to be able to have them look at part of this and not be like, I can't look at this anymore. Owie, my eyeballs, No,
I'm like, my vision has the ratio, whatever they call like the 20/20 thing, like the second number has actually been increasing as you've talked about this in real time.
They have this motif like with the like hole, with the O being like a bottomless like spiraling like hole. Like I get that. But then they brought in a second motif, which is like this sun motif that's circling it. And then they added just like the worst green they could have chosen to the background.
It is a very insulting green.
The red that they use and the green that they use are at like a very similar value.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if I put this in black and white, if it'll just disappear the name. I'm actually gonna try that on my phone really quickly. Hold on.
Yeah, and I'll do that. I'll put this in black and white in post so that you guys can see this as well. I am starting to see this as an eyeball, where like the rays of the sun are kind of like eyelashes, and you got the iris there with the O. There's something there, I think. I don't know. I think I'm feeling B for this one personally. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Iron Maiden.
Do you want me to ruin it for you?
Okay. Yes, absolutely.
This kind of feels like. Okay, so that's an O. That's not supposed to be.
Yes.
They made some choices that make it visually more interesting, but the choice to make that O and the A.
Yeah.
And the D.
I think the Iron Maiden logo definitely works better on the album covers, where you also have like Eddie on there, and you have like the other like fantastical looking things and all the horror stuff. Like it is a little bit more digestible if you have the other stuff on the album cover.
Those points do not come to the same point.
The R is slightly higher.
It's higher, and one of the M is slightly lower than the N's.
Wait, let me. Oh my.
You need to see this right now, actually.
No, I'm doing it right now on MS Paint. That is frustrating.
I'm gonna be real. I think I might have to knock it to a high B.
All right.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. You know what? That is a pertinent discovery to this project. Apparently, there's a band called Jimmy Eat World. Now, Jimmy's gonna get pretty full because, contrary to what Disney believes, it is a big world after all. It absolutely looks like a shop on the Miami beach, like it just like a surf shop where you can get t-shirts and you can get shrimp po' boys and stuff. Like, that is the vibe that we're looking at.
Yeah, exactly.
How are we feeling about these cute little electric spikes below the world?
I have questions.
Okay.
I will say that. Like, I'm just wondering, like, maybe what the point of that was, because
Me too. There are parallel universes where I haven't seen this logo in my life, and I feel sad for those Ethans. I think that my life is actually better for having seen this logo, because it does provide me with some kind of entertainment value. I think honestly it deserves a B tier.
Yeah, for sure.
I believe the next one here is actually a self-insert from my end. This is actually not one that was included on the original tier list page, but I just had to throw it in here because it just so happens that this is my favorite band logo of all time. I recognize that it's probably not objectively the best, but it is just the one that I have seen ever since I was a little kid. I've always been absolutely mystified by this logo. I just think it's magnificent. It brings me such a level of joy every time I look at it. And please tell me why would you put this in S tier?
Oh,
Or
man.
the C tier. You could put it in the C tier. It's fine.
What a setup! I think I'm gonna make you cry. I actually think that there will be tears, and you'll just be like, "It's fine, it's fine."
No, it's okay. Just you can shit on my favorite logo. It's fine. That's fine.
I will say my first thoughts right off the bat is this is a really cool logo.
Okay.
Like off the bat, I'll give it points. Like it's visually cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do think that there are questions I have
Okay.
because I see that there's like this orb behind the actual band name.
Yeah.
And I believe that's supposed to be Earth.
Yeah, you can see a little like South America peeking out there. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of get that, and I like it. It's not super apparent unless you're like dissecting the logo, so that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm nothing terrible there. It could be a little bit more clear. The wings, I kind of like that they this is like the first logo that we've had that like feels like a rendered drawing as well too,
Mm-hmm.
which is really cool because I think that's it does a lot of work. When there's a lot of colors and a lot of rendering, like it can do a lot of legwork in a logo. It doesn't make it as simple, but it can make it look more visually interesting, which I think that this does because those wings go from like this, like a sky blue into like a purple into like a deep red, and then that kind of contrasts band name itself.
Yeah.
The font is funky. I like it. I like that it kind of does weird stuff where it's like kind of like going up and down and all this stuff from the tops, and it has like those weird curvatures. The Y is a little weird. I don't love the way that the Y looks on the Journey font.
That's totally fair.
I do feel like this does have like an overall sense of like whimsy, and like I do get like it's called Journey. The Earth is in the background. We're flying high. The sun's at our back. Like I kind of get that vibe from the logo, which is like there's a story, there's a narrative to it. I can tell a lot about this band from the logo itself. So truthfully, I don't think this is going to be below an A for me personally. If that makes you happy, I bet it does.
It does. I'm literally beaming over here. One of my favorite parts about this, I love a good set of wings. Obviously, I'm a big fan of that. But also, like it looks like it's a rocket ship taking off from the bottom little part there. You could interpret it as a sun, but you could also interpret it as like a beam of fire coming from the bottom of a rocket ship. And
yeah, I could see that.
I just really, and obviously it's like impossible for me to separate this logo from the music of Journey because like it's just one of those bands it's like it's definitely in my top 10 bands of all time. Like Journey's music is like from heaven. It's just one of those like transcendental like things that just this brings me so much happiness in life. So yeah, it's just one of those majestic bands that I will always respect with all my heart. I really I'm really happy that we were able to put it in the A tier today. I would personally put it in S, but it probably belongs in A, objectively speaking. The next logo here is Korn. We absolutely need to talk about the fact that the R is backwards. Some of them are uppercase, some of them are lowercase. What are we doing, guys? What's going on? This is kind of a circus.
I have a little fun story about this band logo because I have actually one of my students is a huge fan of Korn.
Oh, so
like apparently his dad's like a diehard fan. So I've seen like 7 of like their T-shirts that have that logo on.
So you have a checkered history with the Korn logo.
And I'm gonna be so real with you. It's unique. It's unique. I'll give it that. Why did they feel the need to do it this way? You know?
Yeah, that is so fair. That is such a good question, and I genuinely cannot provide an answer for you. And I don't know if the members of Korn could provide an answer for you either, honestly.
You know what this is telling me about the band? Like, you know what my feelings are about the band from this logo? They don't give a single shit.
Yeah.
Like, not a shit is given.
Nope.
Like, it's not spaced out the same. It's not on the same, like, linear format. The R's backwards. There's no capitalization. Yep. And you know what? Maybe this band doesn't give a shit. And they're here for, like, a good time, not a long time, or whatever the fuck that saying is.
Honestly, they might as well just throw in an apostrophe here, and it would be, you know, it would just fit in.
Korn?
Yeah. Like, you know, they probably don't mind if I do this.
Honestly, what would make this even better, in my opinion, like my humble opinion, is if they just added like actual Korn like, around the letters.
We'll go ahead and put Korn in C tier. We have Led Zeppelin up next.
I do like the typography.
Yep.
I don't know what's going on below it though, if I'm being honest with you. Like they have like the Olympics logo. Is that like what?
Yeah, actually, you know what? That is crazy. I never noticed that is the Olympics logo. But well, not quite. I guess the Olympics have like the 5 other things or whatever. But like, no, it is
right. Yeah, that's
it is very like these symbols have always been on like John Bonham's drum set, and they put these symbols on Led Zeppelin 4, which is their 4th album, and it's like nobody has ever really. Well, I'm sure, you know, I'm sure maybe there's some interview of them explaining it, but like not many people, including me, really know what's going on with them. I think it's just a byproduct of like, oh, we're like sort of a semi-progressive band from the 70s, and we're going to do some cool artsy stuff. If J.R.R. Tolkien like tried to create his own system of zodiac signs, it feels like these would be like the top 4.
And the other thing too about the letters that I kind of do like is that they all feel really top heavy.
Yes.
Like the D specifically feels like a guy puffing out his chest. The only thing that I am questioning is why they felt the need for that N to go below the line that they have very clearly set. Because that does... Yeah.
The Iron Maiden effect, as I've thusly dubbed it.
Yes!
I probably like it just as much as the Arctic Monkeys. It kind of feels that way, where you have like a nice visual thing below it, and then a nice, you know, verbal representation of what they are.
Yeah.
So we have a very heavy B tier right now. We're looking at about 9 bands in the B tier.
Oh, gosh.
But, you know, that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I've heard the name Limp Bizkit on many a blue moon, but I never really took the time to learn what their logo is. And now that I'm looking at it, it really, it very much looks like a pharmacy store logo. Like, this is right up there with Rite Aid and CVS. This is very much, this is where you get your aspirin on Wednesday nights.
I did not expect a band called Limp Bizkit to look like this.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
No, you know what it is? It looks like an energy drink logo, actually. It looks like it belongs with like Body Armor and Prime and stuff like that.
You know, honestly, that blue is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this.
It really is. Like, that is not fair to the blue, honestly.
I'm trying to think of like what I would do to improve upon this logo, and I'm gonna be so real. I would probably start over.
Just go back to the drawing board, guys.
I do kind of enjoy like the silhouette in a way for the Limp Bizkit, because I can tell like the guy's got his hand out. I don't know what he's doing with the other arm, though. I think that it's definitely a C tier, because I don't think that it's, like, the worst that we've looked at. Like, I feel like that there's, like, some narrative to it. I like that there's, like, a little guy throwing something at me, I guess. You know, like, there's some interest, but it falls flat on almost every other thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a little unfortunate. Linkin Park. It almost looks like sort of a sports brand logo. It really doesn't give me the vibe of... like, you know, everything you say to me brings me one step closer to the edge and I'm about to break. You know, this is very, like, sleek, modern, corporate-looking design that I would not necessarily associate with their music whatsoever.
The other thing, if you've noticed, kerning again. There's spaces and then there's not spaces in the letters.
Yeah, and I also have to mention the Iron Maiden effect with the N and the R. Look, the R is significantly lower than the
Oh
M.
my god.
I give them points for trying to make like a an insignia that's semi-creative. So maybe I don't know. Maybe for that reason I would bump them up to the C tier, but I'm also okay if you want to put them in D.
Honestly, I think that this is a D.
Yeah.
There's so many things about this that just don't work. Like
Yeah.
from the text to the logo, it's just not. It just needs so much work.
Now, this is the one that I had to look up because I had no idea this was even a band in the first place. We got Måneskin up next.
It's kind of groovy.
Yeah, it does
Like-
groove a little bit, doesn't it? I think maybe a C tier would be good for this one personally.
I was not prepared for that. All right.
Yeah, sorry for the jump scare, everybody. This is the myth. This is the Misfits. I recognize they're going for this sort of textured thing behind the white, but it also just looks like they have written the entire history of the Treaty of Versailles.
So like the Misfits from top to bottom down to like the upper part of this, like the skeletal like jaw where like the teeth are, the upper teeth.
Yep.
Like I feel like I can read that perfectly fine. When we get down to past that, like the lower jaw,
Mm-hmm.
I see two things. I see like a really short lower jaw that has almost like a scarf around it, and then it goes into a shirt. But then the other thing I see is also just like a really, really oversized jaw and weird fucked up teeth, and some of them are missing.
Yeah, I think probably the latter is what they were going for, but I can see how you can see the first one as well.
The font being kind of crooked and like bumping into the logo, it kind of bothers me a little bit, but it feels intentional because this kind of feels like paper torn.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like there's no consistency with that.
I probably prefer this over all of the ones in C tier. I think I would probably put this in a low B. We got Mötley Crüe, and right off the bat, I wanna note first of all that it does pass the Iron Maiden test. The M and the M and the R do indeed go to the same point. However, the umlauts above the O and the U, they are on the same point, but also like the umlaut is higher above the O than it is above the U, and that maybe bothers me a little bit more than it should. Like I think I might actually lose a couple of winks of sleep tonight because of that.
So in Mötley, there's all of this space between those letters.
Yeah.
Right? Then you go to Crüe, and it's like they squished those letters together like people on the fucking 5 o'clock subway train. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, where did the space go, guys? What happened? Like, and Crüe.
Yeah, like, cause
Crüe's
a smaller word.
I know it's
a shorter word.
It's less. Why is that the one that's squished? The horn aspect on the M is cool. You know, the parts that dip down from the M and the R, I enjoy those. So it kind of gives it that sort of devilish, satanic vibe, which I kind of dig.
It kind of like reminds me, like maybe like in like a fictional universe, like a demon's pack of cigarettes. Like this would be like the brand.
Yeah, yeah.
I would probably put it at a low B again too, because I think that it still has a lot of strong execution, but there's just a lot of issues with it still.
Yeah, for sure. My Chemical Romance. This logo is coming out of the gate with a vengeance. As soon as I opened up this image on MS Paint, my knee-jerk reaction was actually like to duck away. Like it kind of activated my fight or flight response.
my first thought is this feels like a very haphazard like ransom note.
Yes, it does.
My Chemical Romance. 10 a.m. sharp. Now, I will say the one thing I do like about it is there's an energy to it. Like you said, like it kind of feels like it's attacking you almost when you like open it. But with that energy comes confusion because I could not tell you from first glance that that's supposed to say My Chemical Romance.
I'm not a big fan personally of this type of aesthetic. I can see it working for some things, but honestly, I'm kind of feeling like a C or maybe even a high D on this one.
Yeah, I'd probably put this one in D tier because it's, I could maybe get My Chemical, but then Romance, where's the C? Where's the N and the E? They are lost in that mess over there.
Yeah, what are we doing, guys? What happened?
Oh boy.
Nickelback, the one and only.
I want my Nickelback.
Yeah, no, this is a skateboard brand.
I don't really like this one.
Yeah.
Because it kind of just feels like a worse version of Creed.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. There's a vertical slash through the C and the A. I can see kind of what they're going for there. They're going for maybe like a little bit of a film grain kind of like obfuscation there, but honestly, yeah, this is not doing it for me very well either. I think maybe this could be a solidly in the C tier.
I don't even really have much to say. It's just not it.
Yeah.
It is like the most average kind of simple logo that you could put together that has like enough character, but like it's really void of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. This belongs on a Call of Duty logo. This is the 9 Inch Nails logo.
This might be the first example of like a weird letter or like a backwards letter that I think works really well because it provides a level of symmetry that you understand like what it's going for, right?
Yeah, I believe this is actually the first logo that we've looked at today that is completely and entirely symmetric about the vertical axis. I could also see this as interpreting it not as letters but as just a regular sort of insignia for something, which I think is a pretty cool versatility.
The thing with symmetrical design specifically is that you have to pull it off. Like if you don't, you fail. Like
yeah.
You zoom out and maybe you don't see the letters, but you do still have an interesting visual of like maybe it's just like this like weird hallway, maybe it's just like a weird shape or like something that indicates something, but it works on multiple levels. Mm-hmm. The one thing though is I don't really get a lot about like what this band is about just from this logo.
For whatever reason, I actually do associate this logo with their music, and it may just be because I have like a predisposed bias for it, or maybe it could be like the fact that the second N is kind of backwards, so it reminds me of the raunchiness of Korn, for example.
It's very successful, it's very intentional, but it just doesn't have like that a boost that would get it up to an S tier.
Another iconic, absolutely iconic logo, starting with an N here, we have Nirvana, maybe the second most widely worn shirt logo by people who have no idea what it is. Only second to Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, which honestly I don't blame them. It's not even that great of an album. I'm gonna cut that out. I don't know why I said that. So it is like cartoonish in like sort of this sinister sense that I think they do kind of successfully capture the vibe of Nirvana, and I do really enjoy the font that they use for Nirvana as well. That feels like another one of those things where you would have to pay probably at least 99 cents to get that online, you know?
I think that it kind of is another one of those where it doesn't feel like super integrated to like the logo itself, but I do think that it's iconic.
Yeah.
Like it's very simple, people recognize it, and like the font, it feels very intentional and legible, so I don't really have a lot of nitpicks for it. I don't think it's like the most amazing logo we've seen today by far, so I'd probably just put it with like B.
That's fair.
Honestly.
Yeah, I think, it probably, I mean, it's not as, I will say stuff like Arctic Monkeys and like even the Misfits in a certain sense, they're not as iconic as the Nirvana one, but they kind of have the same value, honestly, in terms of, I don't know, artistic integrity, I guess. It's...
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm fine with putting it in B tier. This is the worst logo that I love with all of my heart.
It just kind of reminds me of like those like what kind of like 90s-ish like movies, like early 2000s movies, like rom-coms. They have that kind of font or like vibe to like their titles.
Yeah, this is absolutely 1991 incarnate.
I don't like it, but I can't not dislike it either at the same time because I think it has a lot of character.
There have been 6 separate occasions where I've tried to peel my eyes away from this logo and I've been unable to physically.
It just kind of seems like very playful. This is one of those where this is intentional. Yeah. Like the wonkiness is like a point, and I think that just for that I'm going to give it a little bit of credit, and I'll say that an A tier would be fitting for it.
All right, sounds good. I bet you didn't know that there was a band called Obituary.
Can't say that I did, actually. So.
Yep, and I didn't know that either until maybe 24 hours ago.
I don't like their logo.
Okay, good stuff.
It's touching at the top of the T. It's broken up there.
Yeah.
There's so much space at the bottom, and they're not even on the same like level, which doesn't necessarily, they don't have to be, but there's no consistency in that framing at all.
They had the world in the palm of their hand. They could have made something good, and yeah, they definitely botched the execution in some places. This logo is a pumpkin, which I think is something to consider. I'll give it a low B. I think it is probably more creative than the ones in C tier. This is The Offspring. What an ominous band name, first of all. Yeah, I mean, it's fine.
Well, and the other thing too is it's like, oh, it's supposed to be like rock and roll cool and yeah, it's like all these things. But the logo itself, like the picture itself is completely symmetrical and smooth and like has all these, it just doesn't, it reads really sterile.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't know if that's like what they're going for, but it just doesn't feel like super like heavy rock and roll like at all. Like it really
No,
doesn't.
that's a great point. I think sterile is the perfect word for that because it is very, like, it's black and white, it's very thin, it's yeah, just kind of it's a little bit too sleek.
That's a solid C.
Yeah, I would put that in the C tier as well. Panic at the Disco, however. This?
Oh my gosh, that's the Harry Potter Triforce or whatever the fuck that's called.
The Triforce from Legend of Zelda?
Oh my god, I confused that with Legend of Zelda!
It's okay. This is getting into a little bit of Led Zeppelin territory, where we have these like sort of mystical zodiac symbols kind of surrounding it.
I just love that the exclamation point in the middle.
Yes, that is something that has always kind of weirded me out about, like, Panic at the Disco.
It's serviceable, but also it's just like, it just kind of feels like you're jerking my leg a little bit. There's a lot of bullshit going on here.
The more that I look at this thing, the more it feels really cheap. I think I might want to put this in the C tier. How do we feel about Paramore? We're obviously going with the slant motif here.
Give us nothing, Queen. That's the vibe.
Yeah.
So it's Laika Studios.
Gotcha. Studios.
And they tend to have a slanty logo.
Ah.
A little slanty logo.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, more like...
Yeah, and they have a couple different versions, but the idea is there. Like, it's a slanty logo. And, like, their idea is that they're trying to capture, like, the idea of, like, a stage light, kind of. Like, that's the appeal. So.
Yeah.
They didn't really do anything other than just slant it.
Yeah, I'm good with putting this in the D tier. Let's talk about the Radiohead logo, huh?
Holy crap, that's a guy. That's like a little guy.
It is a little guy,
gremlin.
that is true. That's what I've always said about Radiohead. I've always said this about the Radiohead logo. It is a little guy.
It's a little guy that'll gnaw your face off.
Yeah, he's ready for lunch, man.
It looks just like it would be like a brand of like those like toxic candies. They'll like make your mouth explode.
Yeah, all those weird like acidic sour candies from the 90s that always on the back it was like nuclear poison radioactive waste.
Yeah,
and it's like, why would any parent want to get this for their kids? I'm gonna keep it $1.75. I think Radiohead is our second S tier of the day.
As much as I'm giving it shit, it's like that's a very clear icon.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like the ears could be like semblance of like antenna or some way of like projecting out. Like there are things you could read into with it. It's really iconic, and I don't think I'd really change much about it. So
yeah, we have the Ramones. I can only assume that those are the names of the band members.
I would hope so, because otherwise I'm just kind of left questioning a lot of stuff. Okay, they're using the motif of the White House insignia. Yep. Which is a choice.
There's just a lot going on here, isn't there?
And also look at the little eagle. It says, "Hey ho, let's go."
Yeah, it says, "Hey ho, let's go." In the eagle's talons, we have a bat and then like a grapevine, and then there's this weird abacus thing in the middle. Like, what the hell is going on here?
They had like an issue with like the printing or like the burn, because like you lost like all the detail and like the like left side feathers. Like they're just gone.
that is weird.
It doesn't work. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I'm also noticing like the S is like frustratingly slightly smaller than the other letters in Ramones.
Oh my gosh, it is. It is, you're right.
It really bothers me.
See, you're picking up on that now.
Yeah, it's the Iron Maiden
You've learned
effect.
So
I'm
much.
telling you.
And then the other thing I hate is that you just straight up can't read like two of the names, because it's like you're reading them upside down.
They're upside down.
Like when you do it's like when you do a circle typography, you need to make sure that all of the letters and the names and everything is fucking legible, because you can't turn your head upside down every time you want to read whatever. It's Joey and Dee.
Dude, you're so valid for that. That's so funny because it's absolute, like, you know, everybody is trying to turn their head around and be like, D. Just from the fact that there's so much going on that you can latch onto, I'm tempted to give this a low C tier, but I would also be open to an argument for D tier.
I would give it a C just because I do think that there's some merit to it. Like there's information that's being conveyed. It's just not being conveyed well. Also, I think I'm gonna give it the bonus points in the C tier because of Hey Ho Let's Go, and that is the only reason.
Yes, so. Hey Ho Let's Go is an excellent point. I think that we need to remember Hey Ho Let's Go for sure. But you know what is a really cool logo in my opinion? We have the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Come on, let's give it up for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I will give you this. This is another example of, like, the circular text, and you kind of have to, like, you know, tilt your head to be able to read it all.
Ethan, my beloved friend.
Yes.
Look at the kerning. Like, really look at it.
Oh, no.
I know, I don't wanna, like, I understand why they had to do it, because their name is really long. It's Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's a lot of words, and to just do in a really large circular format, but it's so bad. Like, between the D and the H, and then, like, the chili is all, like, bunched up. It's very not actually symmetrical.
Yeah.
This video should just be called Cat Ruins Ethan's Day.
Oh man, dude, you're so right and you're so valid for that, but in my heart of hearts, I cannot put this logo anywhere lower than the B tier, unfortunately. I'm absolutely bringing my bias into this, and you can put it below B tier if you want to, but, like, it's, I don't know, there's something about it that's just kind of really fun in the simplistic way. I
would probably say if you wanted to give it like a B or an A, that would be fine, but I definitely think it's got some issues, so.
Yeah, that's fair. It probably doesn't deserve an A. I'll put it in the low B tier category then. Speaking of iconic logos, we have the Rolling Stones. I didn't notice this when I first downloaded it, but it looks like we've actually got some legit t-shirt crinkle here. This one,
yeah, legit t-shirt crinkle.
Yeah, so that's not actually a part of the original logo. I think that's just, this is literally just a picture of a t-shirt with the logo on it.
Well, I definitely think that it's very bold, very strong. Again, with the black, red, and white color scheme that is so popular on all of these.
Oh, for sure.
It almost feels like 1950s-esque, like, diner font. And then they just have, like, this really bold image of, like, a pair of lips with their tongue out. It's just very... It feels thematically contrasting, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because I think that can work to their benefit. But I also don't really completely understand the vibe, without just, like, having to dig into it a little bit more.
Yeah, it is definitely one of those where if it's divorced from the context, you might be a little bit confused. Like, I mean, just... like, I think the idea behind the name, the Rolling Stones, it's like they were trying to name themselves as, like, the definitive rock and roll band because, like, stones are rocks, so, like, they are the rock and roll band. And in some ways, they are kind of the definitive rock and roll band, even though, you know, their music doesn't really hold up to today's standards, but, like, they, you know, were one of the first bands to really popularize that heavy electric guitar and drums kind of sound. You know, I think the lips and the, you know, the tongue and all that, it kind of just is sort of conveying this idea that they're kind of raunchy and they write a lot of songs about love and sex and stuff like that.
I'd give it a bare minimum, like, maybe like an A tier, because I don't really see a lot of issues with the font or, like, the icon necessarily. I think that it reads pretty strong, but I don't know if it's, like, worthy of an S tier.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree it should probably be at least A tier. I don't think I would give it S tier either, but yeah, A tier seems pretty solid for the Stones. It is probably, I mean, it's quite possibly the most iconic logo on this entire list. Let's talk about the Sex Pistols.
You mean the Sex Piss? Like, what is that yellow? Man.
Okay, so I think I have two nitpicks with this. So, okay, first of all, before I even get into that, I do really enjoy, like, the sort of slanty leaning nature of this. I think and the off-kilter, like all of the letters kind of have a different rotational value, and they have different sizes and stuff. I think that's kind of fun. My two nitpicks are, number one, it kind of frustrates me that the O is just as big as the P. I feel like the P should definitely be the biggest letter in that word. And number two, it's kind of frustrating how sharp these letters actually are. Like if they were just a little bit more messy, and if we had a little bit more grain or like a little bit more splotchiness to the letters, I feel like it would work a little bit more with the theme they're going with.
The color choice is a choice. It's not a bad choice. I think that it can work, but at the same time, it kind of is just like there's just so much contrast and so much inconsistency that it's like kind of hard to like really feel like super confident in it as a logo, because like I would just see this on a t-shirt and I would just assume that some guy got like high and just like put something together on like Canva or some bullshit and put it on a shirt. Yeah. You know, the band is called Sex Pistols, so my hopes were not incredibly high.
Yeah, I feel like they kind of missed an opportunity to kind of elevate the dot on the I. I feel like that could have been super detached with how crazy and all over the place everything else is.
Or they could have even played into like the motif of like a pistol too, where like that's like a bullseye or something.
Oh yeah.
You know, like there could have been like there could have been a lot more going on to like convey certain ideas.
I think maybe a B tier would be fair for the Sex Pistols. The Strokes. It kind of looks like a spacey kind of, like if this was like a neon kind of blue kind of thing, it could very much work as like a futuristic arcade logo as well.
I do enjoy that they kind of do break up some of those like strike throughs and stuff. It does feel very intentional. It kind of reinforms like, well, the strokes, you know, like maybe that implies like, you know, like stroking like on a guitar or something, yeah. Right? Or like it kind of has that idea of where it's like, you know, you're interrupting those chords. So I do think that it like kind of does have a little bit of iconography within like the typography, which is one actually we've not really seen much of that in a lot of these that's been super successful, so I give a lot of points for that, but it doesn't really inform you much about the band itself.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't have as much artistic creativity as Green Day or Radiohead, which I think kind of bars it off from S tier, but honestly this is a really solid logo. I'm actually enjoying this quite a bit. I think I'm kind of tempted to put this in the A tier.
I'd put it in the A tier. I'd get this as like a patch. You know, yeah, it's solid.
For sure. Last but not least, but maybe least, we'll see, is none other than Weezer.
Oh my gosh, they have a logo?
Yep, they do.
They have an attempt at a logo. Okay.
This feels like a less successful version of the Van Halen logo, with the two like winged kind of thing on the sides there.
There's no effort, there's no soul behind this. The text font that they use feels like it could be in just like any run-of-the-mill like clothing store. It's just, yeah, it's not good. There's not really anything that I feel like really redeems this as a logo. Like I really feel like you would just need to start over again to like try to make something better.
Yeah, it is unfortunate because I really do like the idea of doing those side, like the sort of Wonder Woman kind of thing where it's like the two side spikes on the W. Like that's a great idea, but unfortunately you just didn't put any kind of creative effort into it. I hate to end it on this note, but I think this is honestly a D tier.
Yeah, this is pretty bad.
Alrighty, everybody, that was 40 different band logos. This is what our tier list looks like. You know, make sure to go in the comments and tell us what we got wrong. And give me that sweet engagement. Kat, thank you so much for joining me today. It was really nice to have an informed opinion about these graphic designs, because otherwise I would have put the Chili Peppers in A tier, and I shudder to think of the consequences of such a world. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for having me. I was glad to do it. It was just very fun, especially just going into it blind.
Absolutely. I've grown a new appreciation and also a new disdain for some of these logos that I've known for a long time, and yeah, it's always a pleasure to look into the into what makes a logo tick. Truly, I've learned about the existence of so many new bands that I'll never listen to. Thanks for joining us today, and I will see you for the next Flint Quill video, whenever that comes out in 2027.